Good morning, everybody. I'm going to share in this video 3 basic things that you can know about knitting a hat, and it will help you in whatever needle size, wool you're using, whatever, these 3 basic things. So stay tuned. Now, I have not been here for a little bit because I had eye surgery. And today, this is day 10 after the eye surgery, and it's the first time I've picked up my knitting since. And it's so good to get back to it. Oh my goodness. So I can't see from the lower portion of my eye. I had a gas bubble put in my eye, and it's blurry. So it'll gradually go away, but right now it's still there. So when I look down, I've got a distorted view of what I'm working on. But that reminds me that a lot of knitting is about feeling. You can feel if you've got the right stitch in place or not. And you can just feel sometimes when you're going wrong. In this case, I'm actually decreasing the top of the cap, so decreasing my stitches so it brings in the top of the hat and shapes it. So what are the 3 basic things? So let me just tell you. One is when you're knitting a hat, you can have, let's say, 1 or 2 inches, probably not more than 2 inches of ribbing. And the reason you do 2 inches is if you decide you want to put the hat up or the rim up and have a little bit more coverage over the ears. 2 inches usually does it. So basic construction of knitting a hat would be to cast on whatever number of stitches the pattern calls for if you're following one. And if you're not following one, it's probably a good idea to do a gauge, a swatch, just to see how many stitches you get widthwise and lengthwise. And then you go from there. This one, I think I cast on, I'm using 3 strands of fingering weight wool, and I cast on, I think, 58 stitches. So that's besides the point. The thing is, you have your ribbing. You do it for about, in this case, it's an inch, but you can do 2 inches of ribbing. Then you knit 6 inches. And then when you've got 6 inches knit up, then you start decreasing, and that's probably going to take about an inch of your work. So your whole thing is going to be doing the math: 8, 9, 10, about 11 inches from the bottom to the crown of your hat. And when you're doing the crown, I knit in using circular needles. I have this is my sort of go-to needle. It's a size 5, and I cast on my stitches and I knit in the round. That way there's no seam, but you can knit it flat and have a seam there if you want and sew it up later. But in my case, I did knit with the circular needles, and then I go to number 7's double pointed needles, and I mark off my work. See how I've got these little stitch markers at various points? I divide the number of stitches that I have by 4 or 5, and I just use that stitch marker to know that that's my place that I'm going to do the decreasing. And the way I do the decreasing is I do a slip slip knit, and I have another video where I show how to do that. But let me see if I'm coming close to that. I am almost. Just a minute. And sometimes I look, I've got 2 needles. I should have 3 there and a 4th one that I'm working on. Oh, here's my 4th needle. Sometimes that happens. Not a big deal. So I'm coming up to a marker. So then I slip my marker over, and then I go slip, slip, and then I bring the needle in behind those 2 stitches, and I knit them together, and that gives you your decrease. And so see if I can show you that decrease. See how the stitches are slowly going in together. And so you just keep doing that. You do that each round. You don't do a decrease round and then a knitting round. You just decrease each round. I'm going to get some of these needles or stitches switched over to my needle, so that I can get back to using my fourth needle, which makes it a lot easier. Here we go. So I'm coming to a stitch marker again. See the stitch marker? And these, by the way, are little gold rings that I just picked up at Michael's craft store. They're actually for jewelry making, but they work perfect for me. And they're a lot cheaper than buying some of the markers and rings and things that you buy in a wool shop. So I've come to my marker, I've slipped it over. So now I'm going to go slip, slip, and I'm going to bring my needle in behind those two stitches and knit them together. Too bad you can't see it in the same way. I'm not wearing my camera on my chest to show you, but that's how you do it. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. I'm going to say on the bottom you have 1 inch or 2 inches of ribbing, and then you knit about 6 inches in the body of the hat. Now, and then you switch to double pointed needles and you start marking it off, put your markers in there and start decreasing. So what if you're knitting a baby cap? Obviously you're not going to knit 6 inches in the body, so you're going to decrease that and knit less. So what you can do is you can take your measuring tape and measure from your top of your ears to your head so that you know how many inches you want. And if you don't have a baby around and you're knitting a baby hat, then you may want to just look at a few knitting baby hats or baby caps or newborn caps and find out what the consensus is in terms of how many rows they do. And then you can start decreasing after you've reached those number of rows. So that's it. This is the season for knitting hats. Yeah, it's actually snowing out today. I'm in Ontario, and it's funny because I live in Orangeville and it's snowing here. My daughter lives an hour away and it's not snowing there. And that's the way it is. Now I'm at my slip, slip, knit. And sometimes when you're getting that needle through, you're actually picking up the marker, so you want to be careful not to do that, or you end up knitting your marker into your work. And there we go. And when you get down to, let's say 10 to 12 stitches, you just put a darning needle through it and sew them up, pull it up tight. I turn my hat inside out and I weave it in there, the end, and cut it off, and I have a hat. Yay, we have a hat. This one I'm using one strand of merino wool, one strand of silk, and one strand of cotton. These are things that I had in my knitting bag, and I'm knitting hats for a family of 7 who need things. People are donating stuff to them because they're a family in need. So I'll show you a few more hats that I've already knit up and conclude this knitting vlog. Cheers, everybody. This is a hat for a little girl under 2 years of age. Actually, she might be 18 months. But you can see I've used shorter measurements for the overall structure of the hat. The 2 inches for rib, 6-inch body, and 1.5 or 2 inches for the top of a hat are basics that you can use for an adult hat, but you can adjust them, as I said, for whatever child you're knitting for or person. This picture shows the shaping of the crown of the hat, what it looks like. Now this is a hat with a 4-inch brim so that when you fold it up, you've got extra warmth over the ears. And it is for a young adult or an adult. So anywhere from, let's say, 10 years of age and up. The nice thing about wool is it stretches and it can fit nice and snug on somebody's head, or even somebody younger, maybe fit a little bit more loose. So the basic 2 inches, 6 inches, 2 inches is a good 3 rule to remember for knitting almost any size hat. This hat was actually for a grandson who requested it, and he's 10. And I used worsted weight wool and fingering wool and mixed them together. This was for my granddaughter. It's a homespun wool, and she loved the pom-pom that I made, big pom-pom on the top. This one was for my grandson who just turned 2 years old, and it fits in perfect. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate you being here.